Thank you everyone for your patience while we've worked out the technical issues. I think we are now ready to start the CPUN March meeting. And I think that we will just figure out as far as like if people have questions, have issues hearing, because right now the only audio in the cube is coming from my laptop. So we will hand it around, I think, as we go through the agenda. But let's get started. So welcome to the March meeting of Central Park United Neighbors. If you can move to the next slide, Mark. And Jack, if you can actually just make it the Zoom on the screen here bigger so that folks in the cube can see the slide deck as well. Like if you can just kind of maximize the Zoom screen. Thank you. All right. So about Central Park United Neighbors, CPUN is the registered neighborhood organization, or RNO, for the Central Park community. We provide a working forum for the residents of Central Park to participate in creating, developing, and fostering a vibrant urban community dedicated to social equity, environmental responsibility, and economic opportunity. At our monthly meetings, we facilitate the discussion of key issues with neighbors, engage in proactive problem prevention and amicable problem solving, and CPUN is committed to providing an inclusive and welcoming environment for all members of our community. Our mission is the betterment of the city of Denver by providing a forum for the residents living in Central Park to discuss and resolve issues, a network of communication, a means of acting on matters of importance to the community as a whole. And we promote public service, civic discourse, collective efficacy, and we are an all-volunteer board of Central Park residents and a registered 501c3. Our agenda is a little thrown off by this, but I think we can make up the time. We will just start with CPUN committee updates and announcements. Then we will have updates from our community partners. Our guest speaker is Kelly Pretzer from Brookfield Properties. And then we'll have a 5-minute break. And then we'll begin our board hour, which is open to the public. Folks are welcome to stay on, and we'll be discussing some just internal board topics. The treasurer's report, we're in board recruitment season, so we'll have the update on that process, an update on different outreach opportunities, and then we will be brainstorming for future meeting topics. Next slide, please. All right, so committee updates. I will, for the community message around board recruitment, we have 4 open board seats as of the May slate. So if anybody is interested in kind of getting more involved in Central Park United Neighbors, the first step is filling out our board interest form by March 31st. There's the little bit.ly, and we'll throw that in the chat. And I also have made myself available for quick 15-minute informational chats. And so that bit.ly goes to my calendar, and folks can just schedule some time with me. And I can talk more about the RNO and what being a board member entails, and just other ways to get involved in the neighborhood. And then so we'll go through committees. Sustainability committee is on hold while Mark Meringer, who is the committee chair, is working on the Central Park Classic mini golf event. Mandel is the chair for diversity, equity, and inclusion and is not able to be on the meeting tonight. So I'll just announce for folks, our next meeting is a week from today, Tuesday, March 26th from 6 to 7 p.m. We meet over Zoom, and you can go to the Central Park United Neighbors website for info and the Zoom link for that meeting, and you can add it to your calendar. And then I see Amanda in the slide deck. So Amanda, if you want to, Amanda and Carol, if you want to give the education committee update.
Go right ahead, Amanda. All right. I unmute. Do you want to mute?
Okay, hold on 2 seconds. Good call.
Okay.
No, let me turn off my there. I just have to turn off my phone.
Okay. Oh, that works. Okay. Hi, guys. All right. So just to
Carol, do you want to do just the first part of it?
As it says, we brainstormed for half an hour. We got quite a lot done. We brainstormed a number of guest speakers, and really we have no dearth of guest speakers, but we just need to figure out whether they're going to be for a board meeting or a committee meeting. So that was the thing that we haven't quite figured out yet. The volunteer needs actually continue to take an opportunity, and they also are growing. So yesterday I was at the school library, and they haven't had a librarian all year. They're just in the process now of organizing things. So if you can spend a couple of hours doing that, that would be wonderful. Go right ahead.
Okay. And then just a quick note. Few other things that we just wanted to put on your radar. One of them is the CPAC meetings through Denver Public Schools are being held right now to select what items are going to be prioritized for bond funding in the fall election. This seems to be something that happens every 4 years or so. The last time in 2020, there was a bond and a mill levy, but I believe it's only a bond this time. The big project in this community is an auditorium at Northfield High School, and that had been tabled last time, and hopefully it will not be tabled this time. Tonight, there is a meeting of the subcommittee, which is called Pursuit of Passion Subcommittee. That's where you'll find information about the auditorium at Northfield. There are students from Northfield High School, NHS, speaking during public comment at that subcommittee meeting right now, tonight, across town. There are 2 more meetings for that subcommittee. And again, that subcommittee will be charged with selecting the criteria that are used to rank projects that are up for bond funding. And then they'll apply those criteria to all of the potential projects across the district and then fund a set of them. So that's there are 2 more meetings for that subcommittee, and then the overall CPAC will meet again and then present their recommendations to the Board of Education later on at the end of the spring or the beginning of the summer. So if you're interested in speaking at public comment on behalf of any of the projects, you have two more opportunities after tonight to do that. And then the last thing is that this year, Northfield High School is out of compliance with one of their 2 stipulations for enrollment, one being that every child who lives in Central Park has a seat at Northfield High School. That seems to still be honored. However, the second stipulation is that there should be enough seats so that 35% of students at the high school come from adjacent boundaries. And this is the first year, this academic year, 2023-24, that hasn't happened. And so if you are a family, certainly if you live in the community, but also specifically if you don't live in the community who in Central Park in the boundary for Northfield High School, and after Choice Round 1, which should be coming out this week, usually it's announced the Friday before spring break, I would like to get in touch with any families who didn't get a seat, because there were about 130 to 150 students that should have been admitted from out of boundary, but were not this year. And so presumably the numbers are going to be in that ballpark or more. And so I would just like to get in touch with people. I didn't know about that discrepancy until about January, and so for February, and it's not really on people's radar because it's been a year since they learned about it. So Choice Round 1 later on this week. If you don't get into Northfield, I'd like to talk to you. Thanks.
And people applied or there were not enough.
There was a waiting list, so people wanted to go and weren't let in. Okay, I'm going to mute. You got it?
Are we on Safe Streets? Actually, you don't have it here. I would have you to. Okay. Brad is going to briefly say something about our next meeting of Safe Streets, which is going to be April 6th, and we will let you know exactly. Oh, great.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Happy March Madness to all who celebrate. Go Buffs. But yeah, so our next meeting, so we some folks in the Safe Streets Committee have been talking about how lately there's been some businesses that have been opposed or have complained about bike lanes and bike parking around town. So we thought we would try and elevate a business that we have in our community that not only celebrates having a bike lane near them, but also has really great bike parking. So on April 6th, from 2 to 4 p.m., we're just going to invite everybody from the community to ride their bike over to Flightco and have a beverage of their choice and just really help celebrate and drive business towards someone who is actively fostering biking in our community and safe streets. So we hope you guys can join us.
Thank you. And actually I'll turn on the camera. And then Carol, I think, did you have a quick update for the INC is the Inter-Neighborhood
Right.
Cooperation?
Inter-Neighborhood Cooperation is the umbrella organization for all of the RNOs, registered neighborhood organizations in Denver, and of which we belong. And so they have, their board has decided to make DEI much more formalized in terms of, I think, how they operate and in terms of making it public. They have a statement, and they also have a glossary that goes along with the statement. And we have our, every other week newsletter. And I'm going to make sure that that goes into the newsletter so that you
Okay.
get that by email rather than me going on about
Okay.
it.
That's
It's pretty
Next
succinct.
Monday.
Yes, it's pretty succinct, and I invite you all to take a look at that.
Okay, great, thank you. And then I just wanted to give a quick update on the stakeholder committee for the Good Neighbor Agreement for the Quebec Street Corridor hotel shelters. So I'm on that committee as a representative of Central Park United Neighbors. And given the double homicide that occurred at the 4040 Quebec Street shelter over the weekend, I sent a request. We've been working on scheduling the next meeting for that committee, and I sent in a request to make sure that there's an upfront discussion of safety and security protocols and staffing at that shelter. That's the first item on the agenda for the next meeting, which will be Monday, March 25th. And I will have more to report back out kind of after that conversation, but just wanted to let folks in the community know that this is definitely something on my mind. And I know that we have a bunch of community partners who will also be talking a little bit about that as well. So I'll just move right into that. If you can go to the next slide, Mark. Oh, sorry. Oh, go ahead.
Any feedback, any way to improve the dashboard with the mayor's dashboard for the housing initiative?
I think it would have to go to the mayor's office, and I would recommend CCing the city council office on that as well. So that is kind of, I would imagine, like, is just managed by like the IT in the executive branch.
Okay.
So like the best place is to take it to the mayor's office. Okay. Okay. And so Mark, actually, before we move into community partner updates, I think Mark was going to talk about an event we have coming up in the community.
Yes, we are actually 2 months away to the day tonight from the Central Park Classic. This will be our second annual mini golf tournament at Flightco Tower. So hopefully everyone already has that penciled in on their calendar.
Can anybody hear Mark?
Oh,
Can you
no.
guys hear me in the room?
He's off of mute.
Someone needs to turn up their own volume.
Can you turn up your volume?
Oh, sorry.
For those of you online, sounds like they need to wait.
Now we can hear you. Sorry.
Now you can hear me? Okay, great. All right. So we are 2 months away from the Central Park Classic, the second annual mini golf tournament held at Flightco Tower to benefit Central Park United Neighbors and the Central Park Business Association. So we're partnering with them. You can buy tickets on the Central Park United Neighbors website. Anybody who's on our email list would have gotten a email in the last hour or so from us about it with a link to that page. Or if you just go to our centralparkunitedneighbors.com website, you can go to the events page, and one of the events there listed is for that event, and you can buy tickets directly through our website, or you can scan the little QR code on the screen if you're watching and want to pick up your phones or something like that and buy tickets now. We have a range of business sponsors as well who are coming. We'll be changing things up a little bit this year to make it even more family friendly than it was last year. We're working out the details of exactly what that means in terms of a bounce house and face painting, and I think it's maybe balloon animals that we're looking at, stuff like that, but we need to firm up some of those details. But it should be a great event for everyone to come out and help support the community. But we are not raising ticket prices from last year. We're keeping them the same. We have actually expanded capacity too. So if you're interested in volunteering, either spreading the word or whatnot, we will post I'll put in the chat in a little bit a link to a form that you can fill out for volunteering if you want to help with that. But mostly we just want to try to sell as many tickets as we can, because like I said, the proceeds from the event benefit Central Park Business Association and CPUN. And Matt, did you have anything else you wanted to add? Is he online or in the room? I think he might be in the room.
Hi, just wanted to add, we do have posters that we want to get hung up around town. So I think Mark's form just indicate if you want to help out with distributing those. We have about 15 to 20 sponsorship opportunities available. I think there's a link on the CPUN website to the sponsor page, so you can find out more about the sponsor levels and sign up to sponsor there as well.
All right, great, thank you. And now I think the next slide is community partner updates. So Jesse is here from the City Council District 8 office and can start.
All right, so a couple of quick updates for those of you who don't know me. I'm Jesse Carey. I am the Senior Council Aide for Councilwoman Lewis. Our updates here, we would like to start with 4040 Quebec. That is the shelter that Liz was mentioning earlier, where the double homicide happened over the weekend. DPD is involved and investigating. Councilwoman Lewis has been very consistent since these sort of came into being. The resident input and operator accountability are primary things that we need to have in order to make these shelters viable. We have been frustrated with the relative lack of access that we have had to these facilities. We have made that frustration known to the mayor, both publicly and privately, over and over and over. And we are working to overcome those obstacles with the rest of council and the mayor, as obviously other council offices are concerned with the sites in their districts as well going forward. So that is something that we will be making those changes in the near term to hopefully resolve those obstacles on our end. Moving on, some of the other updates, they're a little bit less urgent, but they're still important. The budget goals for 2025, those are the sort of overarching categories that all other budget priorities must be slotted into for the budget process. It's the first step in the budget process. And those have been submitted by Councilwoman Lewis. Those have to be harmonized by the other council members, so they're consistent across the board for the other 12 council members. And that will happen on Friday at a retreat that is a public meeting and anyone can attend and tune into. And then last is the community engagement piece. We've been running community panels for transportation, climate, and safety through environmental design to bring forth budget proposals for the coming budget season, as well as longer term policy outcomes that we'd like to see generated by community, including Central Park. Our first meeting was held on March 6th. There will be more coming in April, at least one more, hopefully two more, so we can get a budget proposal ready to go by May 3rd, which is sort of the deadline for those budget priorities and proposals. Monthly office meetings with the councilwoman have started up. There's one on Saturday and one on Thursday of every month. We just had our first ones for March, and we don't have a date yet in April, but it'll probably be mid-April. Those will be advertised on her newsletter as well as her social media feeds. So just keep an eye out for those. The way those work is you just sign up for a 30-minute slot and you're able to meet one-on-one with the councilwoman and discuss any questions you may have, concerns about the neighborhood, or ideas that you have for the district and the city at large, and what you would like to see. In addition, we are starting a town hall series. Those are going to be the last weekend of every month. And the first one will be held in April. Basically, we are going to be bringing in city agency people, Dottie, Department of Safety, others, to just have sort of a question and answer session, as well as sort of community discussion with those agency heads, so that people in the neighborhoods can just hear from the agencies themselves. They're very important to the city process, and I think a lot of times they're not necessarily the most transparent for citizens. So we're going to be bringing those forward, and then you can just stay in touch either by signing up for the email or emailing us at district8@denvergov.org, or giving us a call at the number there. So the access that we've been requesting is specifically regarding hearing from the residents at the facilities, getting an idea for what is going on in the facility, sort of how they feel the management is occurring, problems that they might be noticing within the shelter. We have a detailed survey that we were hoping to distribute to residents, and we have just ran into a lot of obstacles with the shelter provider in distributing that survey and making that information known to us, so we can suggest future feedback. I will say that the mayor's office has been supportive of that, but it's been more of an issue with the shelter operator in terms of getting that data ready. I'm actually not sure off the top of my head. It's more than 100, but I'm not sure.
332. Sorry, Amanda, that was Kevin Hines.
All right, let's move on to then the DPD updates. And I will mute myself and turn on my computer.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. So I'm going to go off script here a little bit from what's on the slide, because I did want to talk about 4040 Quebec, and I think this is a good segue to go right into that. Because you asked, Amanda, I will talk with that at the beginning. So the shelter out there currently houses 332 people on the full-time side. When it's in use as a warming shelter, there's about another 300 folks that are housed on that side on basically nights when the temperature is expected to be below 20 degrees. So from a DPD perspective, I do want to kind of echo what Jesse was just saying here. We're very concerned about safety and security out there, and making sure that this facility becomes a healthy addition to our neighborhood, not a detriment to the neighborhood. The double homicide that happened out there this weekend was very concerning to us. As I'm sure you can all appreciate, I can't give out a lot of details on an active homicide investigation. What I will say is that the two individuals who were killed were in a room together, known to each other, and the circumstances lead us to believe that this was a targeted issue with somebody that knew them, rather than just a random act of violence. We do have some leads that our homicide detectives are chasing down at the moment, and we will hopefully have an update on that leads to an arrest in the not too distant future. But again, I don't want to speak too much to an active investigation and risk anything that would harm
successfully prosecuting that case. What I do want to say, though, about steps that have been taken out there at 4040 Quebec, as soon as that facility was opened back in December, our officers got out there and completed a SEPTED evaluation and presented our findings to the management of the facility, indicating areas where we thought they could strengthen physical security measures at the facility, physical infrastructure and procedures that they could implement to make the place a bit safer. We did have some delays in getting those items off the ground. I will say this week, I think they've made a lot of progress in the last 24 hours, even in trying to implement some of the recommendations that we've had in place. Today alone, I know that they've added 16 new high definition cameras inside the facility that are linked to 34 different motion sensors. Those cameras are owned by the city and are able to be monitored by our real-time crime center downtown. They've also added an outdoor tower camera that can monitor most of the areas on the front of the facility. We have 2 of our DPD Halo cameras now on site. We had a covert one out there for a while with some of our operations. They're also implementing a recommendation we gave previously about using card reader access for folks to get into the building. 3 security guards have been added to the site since Sunday. We have had DPD coverage out there pretty consistently since the facility opened. In fact, compared to when the DoubleTree was operating in an active hotel versus now, we've had a 1,700% increase in the amount of time our officers have gone out there on self-initiated actions at that site. However, we've also seen about an 1,150% increase in call load at the location for calls for service where people are calling 911 or staff is calling 911. We have been staffing an overtime car out there during peak hours for approximately a month and a half now. However, until some of these other security measures are implemented, and we have elected to put a car there full time, 24 hours a day. That's kind of a big ask for us on our patrol resources. It's not something we'll probably be doing indefinitely just because it does tax our patrol resources. But for now, we've made the decision that having a car on site will help until they can get all these other security measures in place. They've added some fencing to the facility, and they're also improving some of the doors. And I should back up here for a moment and mention that one of the chief problems that their management has identified to us, and that we've also seen in some of the crimes we've mentioned out or investigated out there, is that a lot of the crime is stemming from people who are not authorized to be in the facility. These are external folks who are not participants in the program, who are either being let in by participants who are staying at the site or are finding a way into the facility on their own. Being that this is a former hotel site, there are a lot of access points into the facility, and finding ways to effectively secure those access points so that people have to funnel through the front entrance past staff is one of the challenges that I know their management has been working on, and one of the things we're going to try to help them with while we have our folks on site out there. To that end, the door improvements they're looking at adding out there are intended to make it a little harder for people to let people in through the side doors. What we're looking at is delayed egress crash bars that are alarmed. So effectively, if somebody wants to go out a side door, they'll have to push on the crash bar and hold it for 15 seconds. It'll alarm during that time, which will alert people that somebody's trying to go out that way. And we're hoping that that will reduce some of those problems. With that said, from an enforcement perspective, we've been working with management to identify areas where they may need to consider taking action against participants who are allowing people into the facility that shouldn't be there, or are caught with narcotics in the facility and things of that nature. We've had quite a few calls out there for overdoses. This is not necessarily surprising. The population of folks that were moved into this facility had recently been unhoused on the streets of Denver, and a number of them struggle with substance abuse issues. But what we want to prevent is seeing more harm done to these folks as drug dealers try to further victimize them by dealing fentanyl and things of that nature out at the hotel. So the long and short of this is we have been working diligently on this issue and doing everything we can to partner with management out there and the mayor's office to try to find effective solutions that will reduce the impact of crime on the area. I can say that within the past month, looking at, and this was a time period looking at about February 2nd to March 2nd, we did see a 59% decrease in calls for service in a 600-foot radius around the facility, including the facility itself. So that's my quick update on the 4040 Quebec situation. I see a question here real quick. Let me take a look at that. So if a resident is caught with a weapon or drugs, we are told that the staff is requesting that they be removed. With that said, we have had some challenges with staff members who seem to be looking the other way on stuff. We've talked with their senior management about these issues, and they're working to address them right now with some of the line level staff where we've had issues where our undercover officers have seen our staff witnessing stuff that they should be taking action on. So that's one of the things we're working on. Once the building's secure too, we're looking at magnetometers or wanding at the front entrance to make sure that weapons aren't being introduced to the facility in that way. But their agreement to be there right now and the staff's commitment to us is that if somebody's caught with drugs or weapons, they'll be removed from the program. I'm just going to run through this other stuff real quick as well. I know I want to be conscientious of time here. Just for the past 28 days, we've seen an 18.1% total reduction in crime reported in Precinct 511, which is Central Park north of I-70, and a 5.9% reduction in total crime reported south of I-70. Total crime is down 7% for the last 28 days. Violent crimes accounting for 12.2% of all crime, and larceny and vehicle related crimes, that would be auto theft and theft from motor vehicle, continue to be the most frequent crimes that we're seeing in the area. One of the other things I've been asked about a lot lately, and I wanted to touch on tonight, is concerns about illegal fires taking place in open space areas by members of the unhoused community, some of our new coming migrants to the areas. We've been trying to address these concerns. Certainly, we understand that there's a lot of community concern about the possibility of a wildfire getting out of control in the open space areas. With that said, when we get a case where something significant has burned, arson investigations are handled by Denver Fire, who has their own law enforcement arson investigators assigned to them. One of the individuals that we have talked about previously was an individual by the name of Andreas, who's been seen in the Westerly Creek area for the past year or so. He was responsible for a grass fire that happened near the end of last year. What I'm told from Denver Fire is that they were not able to cite arson on that, arrest for arson on that case, just because there was no immediate risk to structures and no structures were burned. However, they did cite that person for burning in an unauthorized area, and he was recently arrested on those charges after he had failed to appear for court on that case previously. We're going to continue to work with Denver Fire on this to try to find ways to deal with these concerns, because we don't want to see a fire getting out of control down there. I've been trying to identify a contact with Denver Fire who can join this meeting with us here in the future and hopefully address some of those issues from the Denver Fire side of the house. One of the things I will say that we're frequently asked about the folks who are living down in the Westerly Creek area is whether or not we're doing anything to deal with them from a standpoint of services. in most cases, the folks that we're dealing with, the frequent flyers down there, are folks who have resisted services that have been offered to them. They're people who refuse to go into the shelter programs or other more stable sheltering situations. And at a certain point, we kind of have to roll into an enforcement role with these folks and make sure that they're at least in compliance with the law, not burning outdoors or dumping outdoors or doing things that are hazardous or dangerous to the community. So we'll continue to work on that. The other thing I want to mention is the commanders meeting is coming up this Thursday, March 21st at 6 p.m. We are holding that in person at the District 5, the new District 5 station at 12025 East 45th Avenue. And we will also have participation available through Microsoft Teams. During that meeting, we tend to do a deeper dive into some of the statistics and talk about some of the areas specifically across the district, and also talk about some of our other crime prevention and community outreach efforts. So if you can, please feel free to join us there. I'm sorry to run through all this real quick. If anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them, but I do want to respect everyone's time here.
Great. Thank you so much, Lieutenant Hines. Are there any questions inside the room? There's No, I think we're good. All right. Mark, if you can
Thank you.
move to the next slide. I think it's the MCA, Diane from the MCA. And
Right. All right. Just a couple of things. As you can see, the egg scramble is this Saturday from 10 to noon. Please come and join us. Our Corks and Conversation, which was our wine tasting scheduled for last Thursday, has been moved to April 11th. So if you didn't get an opportunity, we are selling tickets once again, and you can join us on April 11th. As far as we are working with the newcomers group to host an event on the North Green in April. I don't know that we have finalized the exact time of that, but I'll have more information next month on that. And tomorrow is our delegate meeting at noon in this room or via Zoom, which you can connect to via the MCA website. And I think, Jack, can you think of anything else that other than we apologize for whatever happened this morning to our system. So we'll get it up and running and make it easier next time.
great, thank you. I have an update from the Sam Gary Branch Library. Daria was not able to join the meeting tonight, but she wanted to let folks know that the libraries will be closed on Monday, March 25th, in observance of Cesar Chavez Day. Next week, it's spring break for Denver Public Schools, so they will have a spring break, a weird record party on Wednesday, March 27th at 11:30 a.m. in the community room. I think in the description she sent, it's kind of weird Guinness Book of World Records like how many cubes of Jell-O can you pick up with chopsticks in 1 minute, or how many Post-it notes can you put on your face in 1 minute? So it's just a goofy family event. Everyone is invited. There's also all ages story times on Saturdays at 10:15 a.m. in the community room. And she also asked us to highlight some programming for tweens ages 8 to 12. There's a chess club on the second Tuesdays of the month at 4:30 p.m. in the community room, and a Lego club on the fourth Tuesdays of the month at 4:30 p.m. in the community room. So the next Lego club would be next Tuesday. These are not formal lessons, but it's a place for kids 8 to 12 to socialize and practice together. So we can move on to the next slide.
They want it on the calendar?
Sorry, it's in the Zoom.
Oh, then send me the information. Just send the flyer of the information. We can put it. I don't know if you're referring to the entire event calendar, but send the dates and the information, and we can send it via email, and we'll get it on the in our information.
Great. Thank you. And we'll put Diane's email in the Zoom chat since that question came from Zoom. Okay. And I believe Layla's on with Bluff Lake, so I'll let you take that away.
Cool. Thank you. Hopefully you can hear me okay. So yes, a couple of exciting things. It's spring, and so we have an enormous amount of events that are on our calendar. There's a lot of different site walks, bird walks, plant walks, nature wonder walks. There's a Spanish language drop-in family event, which is new to us, and family adventure days. So those are really ramping up for the season, and we definitely have a lot more than we did last year. And they are all free. Some of them do require registration just because we have a limited capacity for how many can attend. So if you check out blufflake.org and go to the programs, you'll be able to register there. And then just an exciting update from us. We were awarded on Friday, the news came through that we got a $500,000 grant from Great Outdoors Colorado for the campus improvements project that will be going towards our accessibility improvements, specifically our ramp and stairs. And so we're really thrilled about that because it's really taking us kind of like to the next phase of that campaign. And of course, there's more information there, but we're also trying to make everyone aware that we will be breaking ground in fall 2024, which is this year, believe it or not. And that's what we're like right now, we're on schedule for that as long as permitting and everything goes smoothly, which is the stage that we're entering right now, of course, with the city. So who knows? But right now it's all going pretty well. So if there's any questions about the campaign, the link is there as well, blufflake.org/campaign. And of course, I'm available for questions too, if anyone has any. But the other thing that I didn't mention that was on here is we do have a mini camp during spring break. So if you go to our website, it's on the Friday, the 29th. So there's like a 9 to 3 p.m. mini camp that we have. If you want to get your kids out for the day, that's an option as well. So yeah, that's it from me. Again, we're really excited about spring, loads of programs.
Great, thank you. And now we can move on to our patient guest speaker, Kelly Pretzer with Brookfield Properties, to give us kind of part 2 of the development update from last fall. Just so you know, Kelly, we had collected questions ahead of time. I sent them to you. I also actually, Mark, if you can move to the next slide, I put down some of the questions because a few of them need to be answered by folks outside of it. And I did get some additional questions. So anyway, as we come to them, so there's one slide with these 2 questions, and then there was the DPS owned parcel. We actually got an answer from DPS about that as well. So when, I don't know, however you want to set up the your presentation, Kelly, we have the answers to those questions.
Sure.
So, and I'll.
And should I end at 7:30?
No, like, don't, like, don't, just do your thing and we'll adjust the board time, like based on how much time we have left. So, thank you. Yes, so I'll mute.
But leave the speaker off. Okay.
And I'll ask people if they have questions, like any additional questions.
Got it. Thank you. And sorry for the interruption earlier. I'm the worst at joining Zoom meetings. So I feel like this is my Achilles heel. I apologize.
One thing I think is just, I think Mark needs to allow you to stop sharing and allow you to share your slides.
Sure. Well, or if it's better, I can just answer the questions first. I mean, because really I had a bunch of maps. It was less of a detailed presentation. So I'm happy to just take questions first if you'd prefer. Totally up to you. Okay.
I think there might be questions.
Sure. Sure. All right. So I will pull up. Got it. Okay. Great. That went better than I thought it would. Okay. So
the last time I had the pleasure of being at a CPUN meeting was October, and we were talking about parcel 8 update, and I'll point that out on the map when we get a little bit, get to the next slide, just so folks have a sense of location. And we talked about the process for design of those parks. Liz had also asked for kind of a more general kind of what's going on in the community from a development perspective update. So I'm here to now give that second half, but also happy to talk about parcel 8 or anything else that anyone's interested in. And so, like I said, I just have a few slides, mostly maps, to kind of help orient us as we discussed. Liz had mentioned wanting to see, in particular, an update on affordable housing. So those are the first couple slides that I have here, if this works. There we go. So this first slide here is a map. They're divided north of I-70 and south just for legibility purposes. And this first map here is pointing out the status of the 100% both rental and for sale projects in the community. As a reminder, Brookfield, is part of its development agreement with the city, has an obligation to deliver 20% of all rental units at 60% of AMI, and then 10% of all for sale residential units at 80% of AMI. And so this map gives you a sense of where those projects are, and there are a few that I want to highlight that are in process. So the first that's under construction currently is this apartment here, or apartment building here just behind JCPenney. It's being built by Mile High Development. This actually has 120 units in it, but 92 of those are at 60% of AMI and below, and the additional 30 are between 60 and 80% of AMI. So they were too high to count towards that 20% affordable requirement, but are also being included in the project, and it's got a diversity of income ranges there. And the estimated completion time for that project is at the end of this year. I'd like to highlight here, just kind of moving north along Central Park Boulevard, Kappa Housing currently has a building with 70 affordable apartments. They are in the tax credit application process for a second phase within that same property for an additional 30 units. As you may have heard, the tax credit application process has gotten significantly more competitive in the last few years. So I know that Kappa Housing has applied once and was not awarded. And this is their second application in the round. That applications were due in February, and I believe awards are announced in May. So we should know soon if they were awarded for that project. Continuing up north, there are two sites that are in a similar position, I'd say, to Kappa Housing, where we have planned for a project and are waiting for our tax credit award. The first is the project up here, again, Mile High Development. This is an apartment project. That project is in, this is also in this latest 9% tax credit application award. And then another site here, which is right across from the elementary school. I apologize, back in October when I made this slide, it was TBD, since the group named Hope for Humanity is the nonprofit development partner who is planning to apply in the 4% tax credit round, which is coming at the end of the year. All of these sites are deed restricted, meaning there's a restriction recorded against the property that says that the only thing that can be built there is affordable housing. And so now we're kind of working through both the tax credit application process and the city permitting process, as the case may be, to deliver those units. I'll go down to south of I-70 next. I mentioned briefly parcel 8. That is the parcel here right at the intersection of Central Park Boulevard and I-70. That parcel will have both affordable rental and for sale homes. It will have approximately 170 affordable apartments and approximately 20 affordable for sale homes when ultimately built. The remainder of the projects here, with the exception of this one TBD, which I'll speak to in a minute, but the remainder of the projects here have been completed. This TBD affordable for sale homes. This is actually right across from the Clyburn apartments, if you're familiar, right in front of the King Supers. This is a very small L-shaped site for 12 row homes. We have not yet officially executed contracts, but we're working hard with Habitat for Humanity to be our partner to deliver those 12 homes. Let's see, so maybe I'll pause there. That's kind of big picture affordable housing update, and maybe ask questions, or do you want me to keep going, Liz?
Where are you in terms of the goal or the ultimate?
Yeah. Yeah. So if you add up all of the sites that are built in planning or have the restrictive covenant against them, we are even by a little bit, but over the 20% rental and over the 10% on the for sale. So it's all a question at this point really of execution. We know where the projects are, we know who are building them, we know, and now we just need to kind of work through that very competitive tax credit application process. Well, can I be optimistic and assume everyone gets their tax credit awards? If I can be so optimistic as to make that assumption, then I think that it could all be completed in 3 years.
What happens if they don't get the tax credit?
Then they apply again. I mean, the land doesn't go away. It doesn't. It stays. That is the use until that award comes.
Is there any utility and like letters of support from the IRS for that kind of application?
That is a great question. I can't imagine it would be a bad thing. I don't know. Nobody's asked. I write letters of support every time I'm asked, and oftentimes I know CHEP is interested in seeing kind of support from the larger development and right Brookfield's role in giving the land and such. So I imagine it would definitely be helpful. Yeah. Well, you know, it's just a limit in the amount of credits that they can give in any year, but more demand than they have available to give, I could say, is the limitation. Yeah. Oh, of course. I'm so sorry. Yes. A question about how will the general public know about the affordable homes? So we are required and continue to post all on the community website. So the Denver 80238 website. And then also, I believe they're also listed on kind of more, you know, especially for the for sale, you know, on the typical kind of real estate listing websites as well. Yeah. And I'm also,
yeah. But also the developers keep lists of all people who have reached out to them so they can reach back out once they have available different spaces.
Good intel, Diane. Thank you. I also realized I didn't introduce myself. Sorry, I'm so nervous and off kilter. My name is Kelly Pretzer. I work at Brookfield Properties. I have been here for about 1.5 years, and I work on the Central Park project, among other things. Sorry for being so rude and just jumping right in, kind of thrown off. Keep going. Okay. So then also wanted to talk about recent development projects. So again, we're going to look north of I-70. So we, just because the parcels would have been too small to highlight, but in the general vicinity, up at the north end, approximately 80 homes to be completed. And our projection is that all of those homes will be completed this year. And that is the last of the new construction for sale homes within the community. There are a few scattered, maybe smaller kind of townhome sites and things like that. But in terms of kind of what we see the vast majority of within the community of kind of lot by lot, detached single family, that is the last of those projects to be delivered. So kind of moving north to south, under construction currently, and I apologize, these dates, I should have revisited these dates. I'm sorry, it's amazing how much changes in a few months, so I apologize about that. Rayland Development is building the Solana Beeler Park project. It is not going to deliver this quarter. It will likely deliver next quarter is when those apartments will start being rented. If we move down a little bit, here there is milepost 35, which is the first phase, about 300 apartments. That will be fully completed at the end of this year, but they've actually started renting the first apartments there. So they'll have kind of phased delivery over time. I'll spend a little bit more time on this, but Brookfield has a project here that's right next to the affordable project we just talked about, which is 286 apartments, and similar to milepost 35. The first apartments, the first 20 have been completed and are renting, and there will be a few more buildings finished each month, with it being totally done by the end of the year. And then, yeah.
Can you speak at all to any of the retail that's going in the 2 retail slots that are
I don't have any new information about either of these 2 retail. I do know the one when we get just south of I-70, kind of kitty corner, that a hotel, I understand, will be starting construction soon. But again, that's south of I-70 is the next one. Okay, and that when I mentioned that hotel, it's at this corner right here, which is the runway 35 South project. So let's see, maybe I'll focus on, let's see, this building right here is being built by Trammell Crow called Elevon. Also won't be completed this quarter, likely Q2 or Q3. And then we have, I'll spend a little bit more time talking about this, but this is another Brookfield project. Just for orientation, this is the light rail station right here. And you probably are familiar with the vacant land that's right adjacent to it. So there is a project that is in planning for 600 apartment units. No estimated completion date currently, just because it hasn't started construction and we're still working through the permitting process.
That's still,
Yeah, that includes retail, as does this first building, the Elevon building that's being delivered does not, but there's a phase 2, the kind of land that's just to the north, that is also owned by Trammell Crow, and I believe the latest I've heard is between 7,000 to 8,000 feet of retail in that building as well, so kind of on either side of Uinta. Those are all rental, yes. So then continuing down on Central Park Boulevard, another project that did not complete last year likely will be delivered next quarter, called Solana Central Park. See there? And then I know we had a question about this one as well. Price Development has a project kind of kitty corner on Central Park Boulevard and MLK that should be completed at the end of this year. And then out we have the Hampton Inn, which is just about completed, and then the Circa apartment community has also been completed as well. Pause for questions on. All of these are rentals, yes. The only for sale is I'll go back a slide, is this up here on the north end. There are a couple of kind of 1 acre, 2 acre sites that will probably have some townhomes in the future, but they're a little bit far off, so I don't have any good information about how many or when or anything like that. So if you see a vacant parcel, you say, wait a minute, she said everything's done. There are a couple here and there, but this is the vast majority. And those, like I said, likely would be, because they're so small, would probably be for sale townhome type homes. All right. Little pivot point, I can talk quickly, or I can talk more in depth about the Brookfield projects, or would you like me to answer questions? Sorry, any preference? Okay, I'll keep going. All right, so more information about the Brookfield project. So I mentioned north of I-70 that we had our first apartments, our first units were delivered. The building is called Marlin. I like to say not like the fish, like Brando. Let's see. And then we call the site the TOD site, given its proximity to the light rail station. These are some images, renderings rather, of the Marlin community. As I mentioned, 286 units. These are entirely market rate. For the most part, are affordable apartment units are delivered in those 100% affordable buildings because those can access tax credits as an important component to delivery. So we've completed the clubhouse building and then building 1, which is the building that's right next to it. And as I mentioned, probably about a building a month, give or take, until about September will be when we're projecting that the construction will be completed and the community will be complete. Also now talking about the TOD project, which as I mentioned is still in planning and permitting, so we don't have we have optimistic dates for completion, though I'd say those are, maybe take them with a grain of salt. But the plan is for a combination of 3-story garden style apartment. And when I say garden style, meaning surface parking, not just kind of one big building with a parking structure, but kind of lots of separate buildings with parking on the surface. So 431 of those units in those kind of 3-story apartment buildings, and then 176 units as townhomes, but that are built to rent. So it'll have that similar kind of 6 or 7 or 8 homes that are attached to each other that you see when they're townhomes for sale. But in this case, they would be built specifically to rent and would be managed along with the 3-story apartment building and have a shared amenity as well. So those are all currently in planning and permitting. And I wish I had a better firm outlook of when construction would start, but we're making good progress and making our way through. I also wanted to spend a little time talking about parcel 8. And that was what I had spoken about last time that I was here in October. So this is about 30 acres right off of Central Park Boulevard and I-70. When I last came to you in October, we had just finished the large development review or LDR process for the project. Even though it was within the master plan and complied with zoning and didn't require any sort of rezoning or reentitlement, because of its scale, the planning department asked us to go through the LDR process, which we did. And now we are in the infrastructure master plan or IMP process. And I am disappointed to report that I've not made nearly as much progress as I thought I would have by now. We are struggling with some of the site plan. So this is a very conceptual, so none of this is set in stone, but kind of the concept behind the infrastructure master plan. So we're looking at about 180 for sale townhomes, about 300 market rate apartments, and as I mentioned, about 170 affordable apartments, and then also a retail area, including hopefully a grocery store. When I spoke to you in October, I thought that by now I would have park designs to show you. I would have been through the infrastructure master planning process, and we would be moving forward. Unfortunately, the IMP has taken a little bit longer, and then also we are working through some floodplain letter of map revision work with FEMA and the city, and it has just been a little bit slower going. I feel like I'm in my performance review from last year. Like I tried really hard, but so that is the plan, and it hasn't changed significantly. But I would have hoped to have been able to come by now to show you more information about the parks, get more feedback, and we're just not quite there yet. No, there is not. Oh, sorry. The question was, does anyone have a first option on the grocery store? And the answer is no.
The grocery store currently we're planning is just at about 40,000 square feet. And I do not have an official grocer that I can. Good question. I would say that is Trader Joe's are usually about like a 20 to 25,000 square feet. So I'd say bigger than that. But King Supers can be in the 40, but sometimes can get up to like the 80 or 100,000 square feet. So I'd say kind of somewhere in between the two is a kind of a rough sense.
There's another question in the chat. Is there any concern on 300 stores that are less than a mile from that spot? I mean, we have a ridiculous number of grocery stores within like pretty close radius.
Oh, that's like 1,000.
Yeah. Yeah, there's.
Yeah. So, okay.
Yeah.
You want to repeat what the response was?
Oh, sure. Of course. Yeah. The question about concern about the and I think that there are a significant number of homes and housing in that area, especially that are also some that will be delivered. And so, no, we haven't seen a lot of concern, right, and actually have seen kind of the opposite, a lot of interest in people coming to the community.
Boulevard where it comes over I-70 if there's going to be more traffic?
No, that is not currently included as part of this project. And Central Park Boulevard is a city-owned street now, so that would anything like that would be a kind of a dotty state, which that might get to. Yeah.
Received ahead of time. There were multiple folks and kind of multiple iterations of questions about traffic study on Central Park Boulevard. And I know that anyway, actually let me just unmute myself.
Not that I know of. There's not that I know of, no. Right. 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 So why don't I stop sharing and then Mark can share the questions? Okay.
All right. Mark, could you share the slides on our go back to the CPUN slide deck with the questions that folks had? So kind of a lot of there were multiple questions about the traffic impacts along Central Park Boulevard. And I think if anybody was driving around midday, there was a lane closure on Central Park Boulevard, and it was a nightmare until basically from I-70 to like 35th or 36th. So it was great. I was stuck in it. Yeah. So anyway, so that really is on people's minds, and just kind of to preface whatever response you'll give, Kelly, I actually have been reaching out to Maggie Thompson, who's the community designer in the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure. And so she's currently working on a joint response from Dottie and Community Planning and Development on the city side of that. And she is also going to be our guest speaker at next month's CPUN meeting. So she will be in the hot seat to answer those questions and more. So just a preview of coming attractions. So I just wanted to let folks know that we've been working on getting a response from the city, and it's kind of in process at the moment. But then I'll let you.
Got it. And I think that, part of what has been, we've been working through with the infrastructure master planning process is submitting our plans to Dottie and CPD and getting city planning, city permitting approval, right? So that as the regulators, they are looking at current conditions, right? What we're proposing and giving us feedback about how we need to revise our designs in order to better accomplish what they're looking for. So we are going through that process just like anyone else would. Our role with the kind of larger build out of the community doesn't really matter in this conversation. They're the permitting and the reviewing agencies, and they tell us what we need to do.
Does that mean that, say for example, parcel 8 or the review of parcel 8 plus all the apartments around there, the development, you guys underestimated the development, so now you have to come back and rework that? Would that be something that Dottie would come back and say, or would that be something that Dottie would then have to put in the city budget?
I mean, those are city-owned streets, and so if Dottie or the city more generally, right, is interested in wants to change or revise their streets, they would go through that process. Where we're talking about building new streets, that's where they say, no, we want to see, and particularly a lot of focus on how can we improve pedestrian safety, how can we make these angles better, how can we improve these intersections, and so we're working a lot through that process with them, and they're giving us direction about what they want to see built in terms of new streets and new infrastructure.
And I guess, having lived out here,
in the history of the development, as things changed, the developer did have to go back and make revisions. And so what you're saying is at this point, that's not typically something that the city is going to put on Brookfield, or that you're aware of.
The question about changes to already built infrastructure later on down the road. This could be a case where I need to plead ignorance. I don't know exactly the circumstances of it. I don't doubt that it occurred, but exactly why and kind of what led up to it, whether it was, not that I know of, but I will definitely ask the question because I would like to know that too, to be honest.
yeah, Jim would probably know.
Perfect. I will definitely reach out. I'll go ahead and address the question also on the slide here about the new development at the southeast corner of Central Park Boulevard and MLK. To the best of my knowledge, there is no retail currently contemplated in that project. It is entirely residential. I know that there was no requirement for retail when that land was sold. I don't believe there's any restriction against having retail either. But from everything I've heard, there is currently residential only that's being built. Oh, the next slide, if you don't mind, Mark. Thank you.
And so this was a question that we got about the Denver Public Schools owned parcel in the North End at 6002 North Emporia Street. The question we received, the person was asking if DPS owned the parcel, or if they didn't develop it, if it would be turned back to the developer, like the master developer, after a period of time. And so part of the response is that DPS owns the parcel outright. And so I emailed DPS board director Michelle Quattlebaum about the parcel. And so her response is copied on this slide. A thorough analysis conducted through the school resource allocation process determined that there isn't an immediate need to construct a new school within the region. Our projections indicate that the peak capacity is forecasted around 2027, and currently we have sufficient capacity across the zone to accommodate students' needs across various grade levels. That being said, we are open to exploring various educational initiatives and programs that could benefit from utilizing a DPS-owned land, given its potential for diverse educational purposes such as early childhood education, athletics, professional development, and more. Usage suggestions are always welcomed. And she said if you have suggestions or if you have questions about this response, to contact her directly, and I'll put her email in the chat as well. But just wanted to make sure that the person who had sent in that question got the response. So the question was, is that parcel by Northfield High? And it's north of 56 in the North End. And I think it's north of like where the elementary school and middle school are up there. So it's a big empty plot of land. So, okay, are there any other questions? I'm kind of in the middle of typing the response to the question in the chat that was, what was that question, which was Brian's question. So I'm typing that. But while I'm doing that, are there any other questions in the room for Kelly? Sure.
I'm just wondering if there's been any traction on non-automotive focused crossings from the south side to the north side, particularly connecting the transit station to Northfield Mall and providing the cyclists who are going to Northfield High School a way to get to school, since there's no busing at that age. And then the parking around Northfield High School, I should say Sandoval campus, because it's two schools that are housed there together. There are no buses that service that age group, and so kids either drive and then flood the street with cars, or they face death crossing I-70 exit ramps. What is being done to prevent a fatality?
Great answer to that question. The question regarding access over I-70. We are okay. There. I'm Jack Stewart, Community Services Coordinator with the Metro Community Association. CPUN board member as well, because apparently I don't sleep at night. I was that too. Yeah. So crossing north to south, there has been discussion about that. There's currently Parks and Rec is currently engaging in study about what a crossing over the creek would look like. Parks and Rec currently owns a parcel of land to the south of the creek, which is what we officially refer to as the bulk fuel farm. That's where they put all the jet fuel. They are very concerned about disturbing that soil for another 10 years because that's where they put all the nasty things. There's also a train station in the way, so we would have to cross train tracks, disturb dirt, and then go over a creek. And so they want to find a way to overcome that, but they don't have any money to do it right now. Short answer to that question. But they're working on it. Regarding parking around the high school, there was discussion between Park Creek Metro District, which is, of course, developing all the land and public infrastructure, and the city regarding use of the undeveloped parkland that abuts Northfield High School. The city would agree to provide Denver Public Schools a revocable permit for that land if Denver Public Schools would develop whatever parking service would go on that land. Here's the snag in that, though. Whatever is built on the land must have a purpose associated with the park. So there is dispute over whether or not building a parking lot would be considered a purpose relative to a park. That ball is solely in the court of Denver Public Schools. The city has said, we're willing to work with you on this, and Denver Public Schools has indicated that they're not interested in engaging in those conversations at this time. There are my answers. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's keep going. So you said that Denver Parks and Rec has maybe a 10-year out way of crossing the creek to that parcel that they own that's loaded with jet fuel. But there are a multitude of things that need to be crossed there: the train tracks, the creek, and then the interstate. So would the crossing of the creek still then require someone to cross the interstate exit ramps on foot or on bike? I'm looking for, yes. Yeah. Is there any way that we can have a pedestrian crossing across all of those obstacles?
Not one single crossing.
Well, I mean, it would have to be like a connected set of things, but is that something that anyone is looking into?
So a solution that would go over the interstate crossings, that has been ruled out too cost prohibitive. So there has been discussion about how to make those interstate crossings safer. But as far as building a separate situation where you would go over, you can't go have to go over, that would be in the hundreds of millions of dollars price range, and there is not a revenue stream to support that at the same time. So if somebody's got $100 million and doesn't need it.
Special infrastructure fund. I mean, like, this isn't that the money that they're using that for all kinds of.
You know, I can't speak specifically to how that's being funded. I know that local governments, so the cities, are who can apply for that funding. I know in Denver's eyes, there are many more places within the city that are a higher priority than they are. What I've gotten responses from the city saying there is a way to cross I-70 from north to south. There's a sidewalk that goes along Central Park Boulevard. Tell people to use that. So that has been the city's response to me when I have asked them. I'm not saying it's a good response. I'm saying that's the response they give. I'm sorry.
This is an issue that has been brought up since the beginning of North and South connecting each other, and the cost prohibition on that connection has ruled it out from the get-go. I took that every single day on my bike, and I understand. I'm terrified, and I'm stopped until I see somebody's eyeballs before I cross, because people do not stop. They do not pay attention. So please, please encourage your sons, daughters, children to make sure they're getting people's eye contact before they make that move across. I know how dangerous that space is. So I don't want to say cost is keeping us from making it safe. We also have to educate our students and children at how to make themselves safer in that circumstance. So please, please go over with your kids that's really important to take time to see people's eyeballs before they cross those spaces. Even down where at 40th, that's not fun because you can go around and take the path, not even go up another Central Park and over the light rail tracks. You can come across the other way, but still you have 40th and you have I-70 to cross. And take the time. Just see people and be very aware. So that's where we are right now. But I know it's been something that's been brought up time and time and time again.
Thanks. Yeah. And it's the same, like going to Havana and Peoria and
yes.
Just wondering, is there one for like, is there a plan like for open space or a little playground or something in there so it's like not all so compact and tall? And is there?
Are you thinking about that parcel in specific, or just more? Sorry, and the question was about, you know, that is there plans for additional parks, especially with apartments being smaller and more dense?
Yeah.
Were you thinking about the parcel?
Well, I don't know parcels.
Sorry,
but I do know streets.
Yeah.
So, but all of them that I pass, like along Central Park, the 35th, and Martin Luther King, and all of them going out that way, they just look big and tight.
Yeah, yeah,
so
sure.
Are there? I mean, I'm gonna assume too that somebody's gonna have children in there, and you just don't want to walk across to Central Park all the time.
So I would say a question again about kind of that they look so dense, so tight. You know, where you know, what sort of open space options are given to people. And I believe I'm correct in saying with each project, a lot of times they're built in kind of maybe a U shape or an O shape, and they often have open space in a courtyard or in the middle of the building that's just not as visible.
We just can't see it from the street.
Exactly. I'll say on the projects that Brookfield is building north of I-70, Marlin, not the fish, Brando, has a pool as well as a fitness center and other things that are kind of a little bit set back from the roadway, so it's not quite as obvious. So I think most of the apartment communities offer some sort of outdoor space for the people who live there.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions. I think, are there questions in the Zoom chat that I might have missed? And then I think,
yes.
that's good in the room.
Yep,
Right now?
hello?
All right, well,
Can-
thank you so much.
Yeah.
Can you hear
And then
me?
well,
Anytime. Thank you so much for having me. It's always such a
Hello?
pleasure.
and I
to be
think, I think there's usually also a development update in May as part of our
I'll be
annual
back.
forum. So we'll, we'll be seeing you in
You
a
won't be
couple of
able to
months.
get rid of me.
Oh, there's a question coming.
Sure.
Do you want to just unmute yourself and ask it, Terry?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay, great. So I had submitted a question that was, it's related to the ongoing development and especially the traffic that is already there, as we all know, and was mentioned earlier. And I think back in the October meeting, it was mentioned that there was a traffic study that was being done for that parcel 8 property. And so my question specifically about parcel 8 is, was that traffic study completed? And is that available to CPUN or the residents to see what the results of that traffic study are? I'll stop there and then I can continue.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna turn my sound off. The parcel 8 traffic study, did you say that hasn't been done or that hasn't been completed yet?
So it's been a little bit of an iterative process where we've done a level of service analysis for the proposed intersections. And then the feedback from the city is we'd like to see you change the intersections, which then requires us to do another level of service analysis on those intersections. And so we're still in that kind of iterative back and forth process. We haven't landed on a final configuration yet for the roadways, and then that ultimately determines how the intersection performs.
Can we see the results of the traffic study that was completed? Is that accessible?
The level of service studies for the roadway design that hasn't been.
Terry, you're specifically asking about a traffic study. Was a traffic study part of this, and is that public information? I might not be using the right language.
No,
that's the language that was used at the meeting.
The discussion. Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I need to turn my sound off. That was my fault. That was her. Oh, Terry, do you want to clarify just real quick?
Yeah, that was at least the language that was used in the October meeting, if I recall correctly, a traffic study.
Okay, and so my sound is off again, so I can't hear. So was it a traffic study like we see on like regular streets, or is this just something different that's similar that it's working out the new development? Is there a traffic study?
So there is a level of service analysis for intersection designs. And this may be a term of art that maybe I'm ignorant of or missing, if that is or isn't. Certainly when we talked about it in October, because Terry's right, we did talk about it in October. I remember that. In my mind, I was thinking about those level of service analyses for intersection, but that could be my error when I said yes to that. That's at least what I was imagining, but perhaps I should have asked a clarifying question. If there's a different type of study that people have seen previously. Yeah. Certainly we're, again, following all of the DOTI's requirements and permitting requirements through the infrastructure master plan. So anything that's required to prepare, we are.
And when you submit to build the traffic study that you did as part of the building, as part of the online documentation that people can go and read, at least it is
it's part of the that's what the question was, if the documentation is part of kind of the public record of the permits. Absolutely, and that's part of what informs the infrastructure master plan, in addition to talking about sewers and dry utilities. It also includes those kind of level of service and mobility studies that are part of the infrastructure analysis. And so again, you're absolutely right, Terry. We did talk about traffic study, and perhaps what I was thinking in my mind when we were talking about that might be different than what others are familiar with seeing. So happy to continue discussing, but that could be my error.
Can I follow up?
One follow-up question on that is what is the best way for folks to access? I mean, so there's an online permitting portal. Would you be able to give us just kind of the permit application number so that folks can look at the large development review or any of kind of like all the documentation if they're curious. Is that the best place to get that information?
Or should I repeat the question, or were you?
I'm unmuted at the moment.
Okay,
So
got it. I will unmute too. So why don't I will type my email address in the chat, and folks are welcome to email me as well. I'm happy to give you permit numbers, but I'm also happy to save you the searching and just send it to anyone as well. Okay.
Okay, I thought it was long. Okay. No. Oh, okay, got it.
Okay.
Can I speak now?
Terry, if you want to, yeah, I'll turn the sound on my computer if you can just ask your question.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I guess it's not so much, well, it is a question, but so I, as well as many other residents, are very concerned about the level of traffic already on Central Park Boulevard, and you guys experienced that today. I think it's a big issue for all of us in the area. I'm very concerned about first responders and being able to respond appropriately even today. And with the plans that were sketched out, there are literally thousands more units that are planned to come online, let alone businesses. And I guess back to I guess I can pursue this with the city also, and I think CPUN can pursue this with the city. But I mean, in most developments, in large scale developments, there are what I would call a traffic study is not just on the affected one intersection there, but on how many more trips does this generate along Central Park Boulevard and in the expanded area as you go out. And those are done all the time for brand new developments, large scale developments, and professionals do that. Then they can project what the anticipated more trips are every day, and then you measure that against the capacity of the existing infrastructure. And in my opinion, the existing infrastructure is already pretty full. So it's just a big concern of a lot of people. What is going on especially Central Park Boulevard, but in our whole area. And we have thousands more units coming online in the very near future. So, so I guess the one question would be, is there that kind of a traffic study that looks at not only just an affected intersection, but on a more broad impact to the community?
Jack Stewart again from the MCA. I have somehow been here for 10 years now, so I know the backstory of that. The last traffic study of the type you referenced was completed in 2020. It has not been updated since then. A traffic study of the nature that you contemplate was last conducted in 2020, and it envisioned a development that would have much more commercial infrastructure than residential infrastructure. The pandemic taught us that there wasn't as much of an interest in buildings for office spaces as there were buildings for homes. We do not have a traffic study that contemplates density with the residential values. I don't know if Brookfield would be amenable to doing a new traffic study. I know that the last one was done pre-pandemic, and it contemplated much more office space. And so I can find it for you and send it to you if you want to send me an email. So I get your email address and just can get my email address in the chat. I can send you the old one. I think I have it in the depths of my computer somewhere. But it's, from my understanding, with our project managers and our engineers, not working much anymore.
When is that planned to be updated?
I have no idea.
What are they? Okay.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, I no idea. Yes, that is one of the emails you can reach me at. I have about 6 of them, so that one will get to me. I don't know if that answered your question, Terry, or if it gave you more questions, but that I know happened before Kelly joined us, so she might not know about that particular plan. Thanks. Yeah.
Great. Thank you all for this, for all of this discussion tonight. So I do think that I think we're all set for now for you, Kelly. But I do, if Mark, if you can move to the next slide, this is the kind of look ahead for next month. So our next meeting will be April 16th. And as I said, it's Maggie Thompson with the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure. The acronym is DOTI. Will be the one who is our guest speaker. And I think actually it will be good. We can continue this conversation with her. And I think she already is kind of working on a response to that. I will, based on what you've said, Jack, I will send her an additional question about, the kind of outdated traffic study from pre-pandemic, and see, if they can include in their response with CPD to speak to that. So as we did with this month's meeting, actually, I think that people submitting their questions ahead of time was really, really helpful. And so I encourage folks to, again, submit questions ahead of time so that Maggie can kind of tailor her presentation based on community concerns. Just contact us. I think the easiest is the contact form on the Central Park United Neighbors website. Just send your emails. We'll get them, forward them on to Maggie. So anyway, thank you for your time, Kelly. And I think that for those of us who are on the board who are here, it is now 8:17. So I think we're gonna kind of cut off a bunch of items that were on the board agenda, move those to April. We will see if we can get to them in April, because I have a feeling that Maggie's presentation will also kind of bring out a lot of discussion. But so for the board portion of our meeting, Brian, we can skip the treasurer's report. So we'll skip that because I do want us all to get out of here at 8:30. Board recruitment update. I think it can be very short and sweet.
Really?
Yeah,
Of course.
just that of the board members whose terms are up, Sandra has decided that she will not re-up for another term, so that has opened up her board seat. And then we also just had 3 open seats since we have a maximum of 19 members, so that gets us up to 4 seats. So anyway, we have 5 applicants. Kevin, who's here tonight, applied. And so just spread the word. I've been reaching out to folks, but it will be good to just kind of, get this portion of the board recruitment stuff done.
Liz,
so yes.
we have to have the meeting notice
Yes.
published 30 days in advance.
Yeah,
as well.
so that would be April 21st. So anyway, I'll shut up now, Carol. And you can just say you're heading up the recruitment committee.
I am, and we have way too many questions. And so the other members of this committee, of the recruitment committee, I've asked them to help me edit the questions and really make a decision and get really focused about what it is we want to know about the candidates and how we are looked at as an organization and what our focuses are, et cetera. So at any rate, we're working on that. And I'm meeting with them, the other 2, and we have 1 backup person.
Mhm.
And we have a form that Mandel's created for scheduling interviews with people. And there was something else really important I was going to say, but
determine if we have more applicants than slots.
What we've done is vote everybody gets voted on. So the process is the process that we had last year. This question came from Jeff, who's behind me on the camera. I think that the process we had last year, folks indicated their interest, set up a time to interview with at least 2 or 3 board members. And then I think the interviews are recorded, circulated among the board, and then everybody kind of does an email vote ahead of the notice date for the folks to include on that slate. So I think, Carol, just really quickly on that, then, I think in order to edit the questions down, it's really important to know how long should the interview be? Like how long were, okay, so no more than 30 minutes. So then that will help kind of cut them down. And then I think you were going to circulate the questions
Yes.
like with the rest of the board
Thank you.
members.
That's the third thing.
Yeah.
We'll make sure that all board members receive the questions.
Yeah. And so then the other recruitment committee members are, well, it's Carol
Tommy and Mandel.
and Tommy and Mandel
And
and
Tricia is
Tricia.
backup.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you.
Sure.
And that's it. I would just say, like, we've got the board interest form. My time is open to talk to anybody who has questions or wants to learn more. So please just reach out to folks in your networks. And then I think we're at 8:21. I just, Mark, if you can move to the outreach update slides, because I think that is just I think that we have the welcome bags are to be distributed this month. So we have a few volunteer needs from the board for board members or community members who are here and might want to volunteer. The welcome bags are just go to our partnership with Central Park Business Association and CPUN for new residents in the neighborhood. Anyway, Mark will send out an email, I guess, getting volunteers, but just keep that in mind. And then for the Central Park Classic, there will be, I'm looking at you, Matt, for this, there will be a tabling opportunity for that. Will that be?
What is table?
Tabling is when you set up a table and it says like Central Park United Neighbors, here's what we do, like blah, 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 all of that. So
yes,
like,
that would be
yeah.
To have some volunteers for the classic to do a variety of things, but definitely to set up a table for CPUN
and CPPA.
On the day of the event would be great.
Well, we could do that right where they register.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
and
registration.
we're doing a new layout this time, so there'll be more of a, we're calling it Information Expo on the west side of the building. So there'll be a CPBA table. The check-in for the event will be there, and various other vendors will be set up there as well. So it would be great. Nonprofits are welcome to participate at that as well. That's the 125 sponsorship level, is to just do the expo. You can post your signs around the lawn and so forth, but from the volunteer aspect, it would be great to have some information about CPUN available to people.
Yeah, and Mark put together a sign up form that we'll send out after this meeting. And then just kind of the last thing, we'll need a couple of volunteers. I circulated a flyer for outreach to people who live in apartments and condos. And also just to put up in community spaces like the library and rec center, just letting folks know about Central Park United Neighbors, how to get involved, when our meetings are. And so if anybody has, and so folks who are on the board have seen that flyer. I'm not going to bother showing it on the screen right now, but it is coming soon to a community space near you. So if folks are interested in just helping, ideally, I plan on at least putting out a few in community spaces this weekend, because part of this is to do outreach to folks. Like we really don't reach kind of renters in our meetings, or definitely not on our board. So part of it is also for board recruitment. So yeah, if anybody has a little time this weekend and can just drop flyers, email me. And
Liz, is that a Google Doc where you can see where they've been placed, so we kind of know where needs still exist?
Yeah, we can do that. I mean, they haven't been placed anywhere, but yeah, I can make a Google Doc and just and kind of give folks addresses that way.
Okay.
So that's a good idea. Okay. It is now 8:25. I think we can talk about volunteer coordination next month. I had a slide about MailChimp engagement. We can talk about that next month. And then we can also table the meeting planning discussions for next month as well, I think, just to kind of respect folks' time. But we have Maggie coming in from Dottie next month. We will have our annual forum in May, and then we can plan out we have a host of other topics, and just something for folks to keep in mind. I will, like that second major bullet point there. There are 2 other RNOs in adjacent neighborhoods, East Colfax and Northeast Park Hill, that meet on the 3rd Tuesday of the month. And I've been meeting with the directors for the registered neighborhood organizations, and we kind of talked about, since we all meet at the same time, is it possible to have a joint meeting sometime among at least our 3 organizations, if not kind of Montbello and Greater Park Hill community. So I just want to kind of get folks thinking about like, what could that meeting look like? What are issues that kind of we share regionally with our neighboring RNOs? And I'll just leave you all with that. Any final questions or comments?
Good way to end.
All right. Well, thank you. That was our March meeting. Please join us April 16th for the next Central Park United Neighbors meeting. And we'll see you then. Take care.